Welcome, and thank you for joining me on the Spiritual Ninja podcast, where we have heart to heart conversations with people who live with spiritual depth and elite performance. Hello, Carrie. Welcome to the Spiritual Ninja podcast. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today.
It's my pleasure. I'm so excited for this conversation, Jonathan.
So many of the people I'm meeting with on this podcast I've never met before. And you and I have a long history of years ago doing seminars together and connecting. And even when my daughter was born, my wife and I and daughter spent time with you with the work you do. And so it's really incredible to come back together after many, many years and connect. This podcast to me is right down like what you and I used to always talk about. And it's really giving people an opportunity to share their very intimate spiritual journey and what it's been like for them, and then how they apply that to living everyday life. And so if you look back in your life and you think about when you started your spiritual journey, if it was a conscious thing or something you always did, and all the practices you've done through the years that have got you to this point today.
Yeah, I would love to. This is a place I often start when I'm sharing about my work life, but it's interesting because I do think it's sort of the original moment of really sensing my spiritual life as well. And it was when I was 7 years old and up until that point, had been fascinated by babies and little children. I mean, I was a kid, but I was just always orienting toward the moms and the kids in the neighborhood. When I was 7, we moved into a new neighborhood, and this mom came down to welcome us, and she was pregnant, and my eyes got really wide, and she said, "When he's born, you can come visit." And so a couple months later, she gave birth and this little child was born, and my mom and I went down and brought a present, and I remember the grandma opening the door and just feeling this energy of like, "Ooh, something's happening here." And we just said hello, and I got a glimpse of this little tiny 5-day-old person. And the mom very generously, I don't know why, and I'm glad she did, but she asked if I wanted to hold him. And so my little 7-year-old self sat on the couch, and they propped up pillows under my arms, and she put him in my arms, and I just had this moment of like a whoosh of energy that just really like came through my whole body. And it was such a moment of recognition of something bigger within myself and within the universe. Like it was this moment of ignition for me. From that moment on, I was kind of the mother's helper, and I would go wherever the babies and the children were and help the moms in the neighborhood. But what I learned really early on, what I like really was present to, was when I was holding a little one, especially if they were sleeping or resting, I could tap into something that was so much bigger than the little Carrie Contey body and brain that I was operating with. I was able to kind of plug into consciousness without really knowing that was what it was, but that's what the experience was. And so this puzzle was just in my brain all the time of like, kind of what is that? And what really does get me there besides just holding babies? And so I kept on that path, and then I went off to college and I started opening up to new ideas and learning things that I wasn't exposed to growing up in suburban New York, but I really started resonating with ideas around what is it to be alive, and what is human development, and what are we beyond just these physical bodies and brains. Like I knew that, but I didn't know it. And then when I got into my late 20s, I was introduced to the field of prenatal and perinatal psychology, and I embarked on a PhD in that field. And what that field brings together is a way of understanding humans, especially from the very beginning, in a way that's a little different than kind of the typical paradigm that many of us were raised in, which was that at the center of it all, we're consciousness. Like I like to say, we're beingness, we're big beings, we're the isness of all in these little human bodies. And so by studying and going on that journey of that exploration, everything pointed back to my own recognition of, oh, well, then I'm that. I'm a big being in a little body. And so that way of holding human experience, human being experience has just been with me always, but like as a real focused attention from the time I was in grad school. And there's been a million other things on the path, but that's kind of where it all really, really stems from.
Yeah, it's really beautiful hearing you speak about that because being a 7-year-old, what I'm imagining and sensing from you is your your oh my goodness, awe of this little creature pulled something out of you that was like, I need to be in the right way for this little being. I don't want
Yeah.
to harm in any way. And so somehow
Yeah.
that like pulled that from you.
Exactly that. And like weirdly early on, I knew that I needed to go to them, not try to pull them to me. Because that was where the yummy, like, it was so familiar and it was so clear that there was this spiritual aspect to it, and here were these little tiny ones coming in who were still connected to it on a level that, I wasn't exposed to in my growing up, but I knew it, and, like, that's really been a lot of my experience of my own spiritual journey, but also my work, which is that we're not learning this stuff, we're remembering. And when we create the conditions, we remember what we are essentially.
Yeah, it's almost very Montessori in a way. I had some Montessori guys on recently of just as far as you're creating the environment or the things for people to flourish, which is beautiful because when I look at spirituality and people's path, some people, and I think I was one of these people where all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm supposed to be happy now because I have all these things going for me that supposedly are working and it's
Yeah,
not working. So then
right.
starting to question. I think
Yeah,
some people from day one that I've learned through this podcast just came out like, oh, I know why I'm here, right?
yeah,
And they're very clear. And it sounds like your connection with the little ones kind of was the way that you consciously started seeing it. And then when you studied it in college, everything pointed to, oh, you're using your logic of like, hey,
yeah,
if it's true about them, that must be true about me too. And so
exactly.
that sounds like that connected you to that. Now, if pretend little babies didn't exist and little kids didn't exist and all you had was yourself and you wanted to connect to that in yourself, do you have any go-to
Yes.
practices that you feel help you there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the thing. I didn't actually become a mother. I worked with families early in my life and then into my young adulthood. But then there was a certain point where I was mostly just working with adults and spending time, not only, but a lot with adults. And so, where that sort of translated over to was really more around this, I mean, nature, like just really the elements, like, I love this term that I use a lot, which is participating with the elements, that whether it's near water or staring at a candle or being around a fire or just being outside in the fresh air and just really feeling the ground and playing in the garden, but the recognition that I have access to this bigger beingness, to my essence, to all in so many different ways, through moving, through breath, through meditation, all these things that I can practice and do, but ultimately what they're doing is just like getting me here and now. And I often say, like, there's sort of horizontal living where I'm paying attention to out there and I'm, very grounded in a human experience. But there's also this vertical living, which feels like it's the knowing and creating the conditions for the knowing of something much bigger than anything I've learned or that I like a knowledge acquired versus a wisdom that's accessible through a certain kind of tuning.
Yeah, I think it's great too, and hearing you speak because so many people will say, "Oh, I don't know how to meditate, or I can't meditate, or my brain's too busy." And years ago, I came up with a system called meditation flow, where it's like, "Hey, what's right for you in this moment? Do you want to do a body practice, a nature,
Mhm.
breathing, a person, whatever it is?" So we have to be sensitive to what's right for us. But what I really love that you're sharing about is, hey, you know what? I don't have to do it. Like
Yeah,
I can use life and
yeah,
nature and
yeah,
people and movement to let me relax into what's already there. I don't have to do it to get there. I can just connect. And I think that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing for people to hear because some people just feel like reflective practices or contemplative practices or focusing inward feels like it's not giving them what they want. And then they just stop maybe. But to
Yeah.
know, hey, there are so many ways to connect to your soul, to your deepest you,
Yeah.
to love, to universe, to God, whatever you want to call it, and to be sensitive to what turns you on. And just hearing you speak, I've always experienced you as like a bubble, joyful, like just this person that's like, and it's just
Yeah.
it's a beautiful quality. And for some people, that's just born that way. For some people, they nurture it, whatever it may be, but to have that quality and then to use it to support people and grow and to also to
Yeah.
realize that as you know, working with a lot of people, that a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
It's not this
Yeah.
natural, joyful, light feeling. It's like this grind. And
Yeah.
so giving them tools and hearing from you all these different ways that people can prompt relaxing into their soul. I think it's really, really important to know to
Yeah.
personalize it.
Yeah, and you said it perfectly. It is a relaxing in. That was what something that I had to really understand is like, it's not a doing, it's really a pause. It's really coming into the present moment and letting, as Ram Dass says, quiet the mind, open the heart. And a couple hours ago did a call on awe because that's really something that to me is like direct access, whether I'm looking at the flowers outside in the spring in Maine or I'm petting the kitty or hugging my partner, the more I can be in awe and recognize, like, not only am I here as a human, but I am a soul sensing and feeling and tasting and touching this human plane. That is miraculous. Like, that to me is a spiritual practice of I am an embodied spiritual being and I get to like take the curriculum and I get to have the experiences that I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know what lies beyond this, but I have a sense that it's not the same level of sensory embodied experience. So as much as I am so drawn to the spiritual realm and to consciousness, I remind myself this, be here, be in this you've mattered. This matters.
Yeah.
Like be in the physical matter of it and let that be the spiritual experience that I'm having.
Yeah, I love that. 'Cause at one point for me, I went from feeling very controlled from my story and everything
Yeah.
to then feeling completely free spiritually and just very like the witness state, which was remarkable. But
Yeah.
decades ago, I'm like, wait a second, I want to embody all of this.
Yeah.
And to me, the decades have been incredible of being so in my body, but with this spiritual perspective and thoroughly enjoying the body and all the things we do with it and life and people and nature. It's like this is this miraculous playing field that we've been given to love
Yeah.
and to grow and to
Yeah,
learn. And so
exactly.
for me, that's been such an amazing thing to realize that because some people get, and I've done it, get super spiritual, like, oh, this is not real
Yeah.
and all that. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what? Whether it's real or not, it's a miracle, any of it, all of it. And just to
All
be
of
like,
it.
oh my God, we're sitting here, like right now, you're on this screen looking
Yeah.
at each other
Yeah.
from wherever we are. And, all these things are just mind blowing if you really let it be mind
Correct.
blowing. And
Yeah.
I also think that's super important too of finding practices because awe to me is an incredible practice. And I see that with people looking at little kids, but some people may say, well, I don't feel awe. Or
Yeah.
some people may say, I don't want to do a gratitude journal. I don't relate
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
that's fine. There are so many practices to rest into who we are
Yeah.
that have a variety of tools. Oh, wow. Right now, I want to hug somebody, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's a tool. And knowing that it's a resting into who we are.
I think that's brilliant. I call them my essentials and they change a little bit over time, but not really. And they're just the practices that ultimately just get me back to right here and now and really back to a sense of this is miraculous. Like it's so easy to take our human existence for granted. And a lot of times I think we, wake up because something happens. We lose someone or something, a tragedy strikes. But like, what is it to practice being here regularly? And like, I call it popping out. Like when I notice my mind spinning or myself in my phone, it's like, pop out, like you're alive, you're here. And one of the questions I ask myself and my community a lot, and it resonates for some and it doesn't with others, but it's really that sense of like, what does it mean for me to be alive in my aliveness? Like, I'm alive. There is a river of aliveness flowing. What is it to be in it fully as many moments as I can? Because we are going to go to sleep and we're going to get pulled out into the milieu of it all. But when I can truly pause, so my practices right now, it's gotten really simple. It's so like resonant with what you do. I experience you, Jonathan, as like one of the most like embodied spiritual people I know. You hold both so like so deeply and so well and so beautifully and so skillfully. You It's similar but different. So it's simple. It's like move, just move. Like what I'm realizing, because I live up here and I've spent most of my life being a very like, I love my mind. I
Yeah.
love spending time in my thoughts. I have a million. I could spend all day with just me, not doing anything. But when I get in my body and I genuinely just get up and shake, and not for exercise, just for the practice of moving, for getting the juices flowing, for feeling that aliveness. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, 15 minutes. It doesn't matter. It's just start with moving. That's me. That's what I'm playing with right now. Then be. Just stop and be. Whether I'm looking out the window or I'm closing my eyes, just quieting the mind, opening the heart, quieting the mind, opening the heart, feeling that aliveness. And then the other is noticing, like genuinely noticing, like life in however it is happening in the moment, whether I'm appreciating or I'm just noticing what's going on in my body, or I'm, noticing the environment around me. It's like move, be, notice. And it so reminds me of, some of your practices around the breathing and the body. And, it's like we're all sort of saying the same stuff, but
Hmm.
it it really, the reminders, even if we're living it, it's just really helpful to be reminding ourselves often, because it's so easy to get off track. And not that there's a track to be on, but when it comes to being present and to being aligned and to living more vertically and whole, it's just really fun to play with little moments and little exercises and little practices at different times that resonate and help us kind of get here.
I think it's great too how it does change, or maybe something we add to our repertoire or we take away something. But I see that sometimes with myself, like, wow, before I thought this was the way.
Yeah,
And now I don't even do that anymore, but I do these ways. And then sometimes like, oh, that
exactly.
way I'm going to bring back a little bit. So again, that sensitivity of what do we need right now to rest into our soul? And the thing is, because our brains are so powerful, that I thought the other day I was talking to somebody, isn't it amazing? Like you can have like right now we're together,
Yeah,
even though we're not in the
yeah,
same
yeah,
room. And one thought can have us not be here. It's just this little thing in our brain, and you see me and I see you, but we could be somewhere else. And it's
yeah,
amazing that the brain has the ability of taking us away from the moment, to plan and all these things, but just to realize if the goal or one goal is to be present in our heart and authentic in
yeah,
our soul, if I'm thinking about something else, I'm not giving all that to now. So I
yeah,
think the body is an incredible way to get us out of just being in our head and our thoughts and really being embodied. And if it's healthy movement and also movement that you do in your day, it's not something separate necessarily,
yeah.
like, oh, I'm going to go take this class, which is great.
Yes,
And how do you
yes,
do it in your
exactly.
day? How do you
Yeah,
get up and dance? How do you walk? How do you move? And
yeah,
so I'm a huge, not only for my work, but a huge proponent for people to move, because the people that tend to get really in their head and try to get out of anxiety through anxiety, it doesn't work.
yeah,
Your
yeah,
body is like the quickest way. And then you're breathing, but not
yeah,
through your brain, because your brain is already on overdrive.
yeah.
So I think it's really important to
Yeah,
embody.
exactly. And what I notice is, and I know this is why people do yoga, like I'm not saying anything that's new, it's ancient, but when I do take the time to bounce and stretch and just like wiggle and really let all the parts of me move, whether it's just giving me something internal to focus on that's not my thoughts, or I'm just a little more awake to the physical and the spiritual energy inside of me. It's really been a game changer, and it's so simple, and it's so easy to be like, "No, I'm just going to sit and do my breathing." But if I do it with a little movement beforehand, it is always a little bit of a calmer, and I am more tuned toward the awe, or noticing the things that are not just my thoughts racing, but the actual reality of the moment. I think we do in some ways have to, like, not trick as a bad thing, but like hack, or, give ourselves these little keys, these little tools that allow for the remembrance of, like, oh yeah, there's way more here than this, like, very micro limited bit of information that I might be paying attention to.
Yeah, it's almost like when you're speaking made me think of that our brain, because of trying to survive and look out for trouble and all these things,
Yeah.
it needs a job to do. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
giving it a healthy
exactly.
job, right? Of, hey, you
Yeah.
know what? Right now, focus on moving and how does it feel to
Yes.
move and breathe? That
Yeah,
gives it something to do so you don't have to fight it to try to quiet it. It's like, no, give it something to do and then it'll settle. It'll feel
totally.
safer. Right. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, yeah, and it's similar with like a parenting a little toddler person. It's like, we've talked about this before. It's like, if their momentum is going and you say, "No, come over here," they're gonna resist and go the other way. But if you meet them, you can get alongside and go, "Ooh, look at you. I see you, and let's wiggle a little more, and ooh, let's bring it over here." You have more agency, whether it's another person or yourself, in not just like grabbing the reins and trying to make it go a different direction. For me, when it comes to spirituality, if I've been on all day and I've been using my energy, I can't just turn it off. I have to step myself sometimes up a little bit and then down. And if I do that through the body, or even like something physical, like taking a hot shower, or jumping in the cold ocean, like, we do need to sort of like help our bodies come present, and then our minds can land and our hearts can open, and then the love is just a different quality. It's like, how do we sort of work with ourselves to override the constructs and the illusions that often create a lot of sense of fear and vigilance, and allow ourselves to genuinely be here in the present moment with full sense of, okay, I can love, like, that is my nature, that is what I am going to be right here, heart open, fully in the love.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as we're speaking, I'm just always picturing people that are trying to find their way or trying to not only be inspired by hearing you and also see like, oh, well, what are things I can do? And I think always knowing as a concept, if you don't have an experience yet, that the magical spark in you and me and everyone is always there. It's not like if someone's feeling dark that it goes away, just that that's not their experience. So
Yeah.
one side of the training is look at all the things in our lives that can maybe help you, even if it's something you have to watch on a screen to
Yeah.
remind you of the bigger picture, to remind you whether it's animals or kids or
Mm,
anything that you love doing, that there is this spark that wants to spark, that wants to let us experience it as the main thing. I think
yeah.
that's a huge part of the training is that I also think everyone's different with this. I've been very interested hearing in all this, my podcast guests of how they deal with their stuff.
Mm,
And so that's another thing I like to ask people, like when things come up for you, do you
mhm.
have processes of how you work with them in a way that you feel it's loving, it's learning from, it's not fighting, it's not denying?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I would say, I mean, a lot of it I learned in my grad school program. Like, I really had to come to the awareness probably in my early 20s, like, that emotions, it's okay to feel. And I know that sounds crazy for a lot of people, especially now younger people who are raised with more of an emotional milieu of all feelings are valid. But I had to really come to understand that. And first there was the intellectual, like, no, it's okay to have all the feelings. if you feel anger, that's not bad. That's just a feeling. Like you're just feeling heat and energy moving. If you're feeling grief, that's real. And so the intellectual awareness sort of was the first piece. And then I'm going to say like almost a decade of learning from therapists and my graduate school program. And then maybe the thing that was like the most pivotal for me was a book called The Presence Process by an author, Michael Brown. And it really allowed me to understand that a lot of the emotional experience that we're having in the here and now is leftover emotions from when we were little. And if we learn how to dismiss the story that we think the thing is about and just literally sit with and feel and alchemize the emotional experience, not on a thought level, but on a physical, vibrational even level of like, oh, I'm feeling vibration in my chest. Oh, okay, let me feel that. Instead of going straight up to my head, which I did for most of my life, I had to really learn how to genuinely feel the feelings and not either run away or judge or get sort of in the eddy of, well, I shouldn't be feeling this. Why am I feeling this? It's like you're just feeling it. And it took years. I'm not even kidding you. It took me a long time, but now when a feeling comes up and I'm off, let's say I like the words steady and wobbly because they're sort of
Mm,
neutral. So
hmm
when I get wobbly, I still go to the story sometimes, but I catch it more frequently now, and I can let myself off the hook. I can let the feelings be there. I have my sit and be with practices. And what I've also come to really know, not just think or sort of dabble in, but genuinely know from an inside out place is when I do have the wobbly moments, I now know that I might feel like I call it the ski jump. It's like I'm going down and I'm feeling all this stuff that I maybe would judge as bad or wrong. But when I really let it take its course and do its thing, what ends up happening is I actually come through with more capacity to
hmm
feel all of it. And so there is a sort of refreshment or a sense of evolution that comes when I do surrender to what I'm experiencing as swirl, and instead of making stories of it or judging it, I just bring compassion and love and let it be and try to just let it run
hmm
its course. I do see that what comes through is more capacity and just
hmm
a lot more empathy and compassion for others who might have a lot of those ski jumps,
hmm
because a lot of times when people are growing and here on planet earth, there's a lot of things that do wobble us and dysregulate us. And so it's lovely to be at a point in my life where I operate in a pretty steady milieu because of the way I've crafted my life. But certainly there are times when I do slide, and I really like that it reminds me of like, this is hard being a human. Like, yeah,
hmm
there's a lot of times where it's flowing, but the goal here is to have these experiences that stretch us and grow us. And they're not always the like pretty fun things to feel.
hmm
They're the hard things at times.
Yeah. Yeah. What I hear from you is that there's a conceptual allowance of like, hey, this is normal. We
Yeah.
have these
Yeah.
feelings and that's okay. Like it's part of being a person.
Yeah. And the
And by
growth,
let,
it's part of the growth. Like it's not just normal, it's necessary. And we wouldn't like that's how we find ourselves
expand.
more here.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then allowing the energy in your body to run its course, you realize like, hey, I don't have to fight it. It's going to go through and somehow it's like clears the pipes
Exactly.
to be more expansive and to know that you can go through these rough pipes and that you can clear them out with your rotor rooter or just letting it
Yeah.
be and then it clears. And yeah, I think it's really important to allow that. And I think for some people, maybe they feel like I'm consumed by my thoughts and my emotions. We all have to find the right way for us. But I think to realize that this is part of the human experience.
Yes.
And by not fighting it by allowing and seeing it for what it is, it allows us to spend more time in expansiveness and
Yeah.
learning and growing and loving because we're not fighting the stuff. And I know it's hard, like when you're in it. Like years ago, I go back to this person once and she just told me, she said, like it was so difficult for me to take in these teachings because I was in such a dark place that I needed, she said, I needed medication to help me be able to do these things.
Yes.
And now I'm able to do them and do it. But she said at that point, it was just such darkness. I couldn't even understand. There was like no connection to it. It was just,
Yeah.
I was lost inside. And so I think, again, for everyone to know that there's this spark in everybody and wherever anyone is,
Yeah.
there are ways out and in, and that we all can look for support. Like I spoke to a very evolved person recently. They're like, yeah, they go, I'm very much for therapy. They said, I've had a lot of therapy. And so I think no matter what it is, what support people need to be able to heal the inner battle and rest into our soul and embrace, it's like, to me, it feels as if this parent and I'm just loving and taking care of and giving a big hug to all of it. And then from there, there's so much magic because there's not a battle.
Yeah,
And I think,
exactly. That's so well said. And that's where the spiritual work really deepens, which is because I think there might be a little bit of a sense that if I'm doing these spiritual practices, I should be, and I don't like the word should, that's why I'm putting it in quotes, but like, I should be balanced. I should be peaceful. I should be all these things. But if you are genuinely like on your spiritual path, you have to be shaken up. That's just what it is. So becoming not comfortable necessarily, but allowing, I love that word too, allowing of whatever shows up and really not just seeing it as valid and honoring that it's there, like giving it a big old hug for being there because you know that on some level it's part of the path that's going to bring you more instead of letting it like derail you or shut you down. I think that that's like another level of the whole game of living a spiritual life.
right on. So for you, everything you're sharing, obviously it's working. And you've also worked with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So if you had to say, I could only give these three
Mm.
practices out of experience of working with so many people, what are the top, whatever, one, two, three practices that you've seen people help connect to them to that in themselves? And also the top practices that have helped them not be controlled by their story?
That's such a great question. I think I would say kind of my 3 top ones right now, which is the moving, like really physically being in your body and getting kind of present to the moment physically, even if it's just wiggling fingers. Like there's just something about letting our bodies take the lead versus up here. Some sort of mindfulness practice again, it could be just breathing. It could be a mantra meditation. It could be just staring out the window. Like I live across from the ocean. And so there's a period of time during the day when it's sunny, when the sparkles are on the water. And I try to make time and just sit and be in the miracle of these beautiful sparkles that are reminding me of like, oh, we're all that. We are that. We are pieces of the whole sparkling and being in our radiance. And then I'm a like decades long, whether it's journaling or it changes. Sometimes it's appreciation, sometimes it's checking in with myself, sometimes it's dreaming practice, but I have a pen on paper almost every day
Hmm.
doing some sort of noticing of myself practice. And there's
Hmm.
just something incredibly valuable for me in that regard of like, hey, I want to really be alive and awake to what's going on and what
Hmm.
I'm experiencing right now as this me.
That's great. And then for practices you've seen for people that have helped the most with when they're going through their stuff and would it be the same or are there differences?
I would say I really, really, really value the practice of sitting with my emotional experience and really getting to know the vibrational aspect of it versus like the story or
Mhm.
anything else. Like there's something so like the word alchemy comes up of like,
Mm.
taking the feelings that are really hard to feel and trying to stay out of the story and like really let it kind of burn and alchemize and really like recollect or, reclaim the sort of power, the leakage that
Mhm.
might have been there because of a wound or an experience as a little one, or just not having the support to or the skill to hold the emotion. Like the more I see people do that, the more I just really recognize it as a way of clearing some of the stuff out and then reconnecting to that deeper soul, that part of us that's always there, but maybe it's been cloudy for a lot of life. And now we
Mhm.
get to not just feel the sun on us, but radiate that light back out.
It's almost like I was about to say the weather too, and you're speaking of there's a storm and you're present to the storm, and then the storm goes away and you're present to the sun. But learning to
Exactly.
be present to the storm teaches you to be more present so that you can be more present to the sun. Yeah.
Exactly. And then
Yeah. It's
realize the
beautiful.
sun is what we are. Like that's the
Yeah.
fun. It's like this,
Yeah.
it's just like mirrors, and we're all just remembering that we are this divine energy. And I love that it's this sort of simple, it's more of a lessening than a accruing
I love
practice.
that so
Yeah.
much. And maybe we can relate because being doers a lot in
Yeah.
our lives. For me, that's one of the things that turns me on the most is, oh, I don't have to do this. I don't have to put a facade on it. I don't have to build myself up. Actually, I just need to rest and be who I am. And
Yes.
that to
Yes.
me is
Yes.
like so inviting.
Yeah.
And for anyone that has been a doer in their life and
Yeah.
how tiring it is and how it feels like forcing life or pushing or pulling life instead of just resting and flowing with life, it's such a
Yeah.
different experience. It's really, really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Absolutely. Well said.
I don't know for you, but I think most people have had, and we don't need to go into details about people or anything, but to me, relationships are relationships. So I know you've worked a lot with parents, with kids, and then parents and with their own partners, and you've had relationships. I noticed for me a significant difference before I feel like I was more integrated in my relationships to today. And it's just such an interesting thing. It's like, it's not that that person goes away that was there before in relationships, but without even knowing it was always like somebody was wanting either I was wanting more from the person they want to give or vice versa, whatever it was. And there was always this, on some level, this uneasiness
Yeah.
because I was uneasy on the inside and whatever the other person was. And then to realize, wait a second, relationships shouldn't be this battle, whatever it is, like passionate up and down, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, each person resting into their soul and then you're getting to relate to the person in this wholeness. I'm just curious in your own experience of relationships and working with people, the difference for you if you've had relationships before you were more integrated to
Yeah.
being integrated.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, my partner and I were talking about this last night because he had been married before. We were saying we've both had, and he had it in a marriage. I didn't have it in a marriage, but we both had these relationships sort of pre waking up. And when you're in, for me at least, and he agreed, it's a lot of you're doing that thing that you need to stop so I can be here and present. But when you really like, when I woke up to it and really stepped into this relationship specifically because he's open to it too, with this awareness of my job is to stay regulated and aware of myself. And if and when I do that, you show up and we have a lovely time. And when we're off, that's my work to do. Like, I can point fingers all I want, but I know enough to know now that that's not what's really he's not doing anything. He's a reflection of something that's going on in me, and I get to take responsibility because I can, and it's really nice because then you have agency in your life. I need to get back and something's out of alignment if we're off.
Mm.
And I can't
Yeah.
change you, but I can take what I need, what I know, and do some tuning in myself, and that will bring us back online, or it won't, but that's the work I can do.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's amazing because in a relationship, it's very easy to feel if this person would do more or less of
Yeah.
this, then everything
Yeah.
would be okay. Or if they, and that always makes us like in a lack of agency way of dependent upon our well being, is depends upon how they're functioning.
Yeah.
And I think for whoever someone's partner is and for ourselves to have the commitment of, I'm committed to showing up present in my heart as authentic as I can be. And that's what I want to bring to you. And I hope you're doing the same, or
Yeah.
whatever that may be with somebody, but that it's, you have the freedom to be you and take care of you. And then, yes, if a relationship's not healthy or you just, whatever it is, that's great. You see
Yeah.
that. But to
Yeah.
know that the other person isn't making or breaking you, it's you making yourself. And then when you feel broken, making yourself again by resting into you.
Truly. And to really recognize that, I mean, I do operate, and it's a mindset. It's not something I want everybody to believe. They can believe it or not, but it's a knowing in me of, I'm setting the tone for everything happening in my experience. And so if something's off in a relationship, I can try to make it about them, but that's not going to change it. That isn't the route that I want to take anymore. My route is, I'm going to take responsibility for me, and the recognition that, like, I have a very, my nervous system is limited in my ability to be connected. Like, I am an introvert. I need a lot of time to myself. When I'm off in my relationships, it's usually because I'm overdone and I just need to go tuck in and take care of myself, versus something's wrong between us or with that person.
Yeah, I relate that too to like say things in our life. For example, right now I'm working on so many projects and I pretty much love all of them. And the feeling of putting myself fully into a project focused is a very fulfilling experience. But like this morning, I was doing like 8 projects or something at one time, whatever it was. I'm
Yeah.
making up the number, but then all of a sudden there's this split in energy. And then no longer does any of it feel
Yeah.
like why I'm doing it, the experience of doing it, the results of doing it,
Yeah.
the whole experience is different. And then I could have said, oh well, there wasn't anybody to blame, but I could be like, oh, that person did whatever. You know,
Yeah.
I could blame the situation or the, and then it's like, no, wait a second. My energy is going through too many fingers at the same time. And
Yeah.
I need to just be, have one line in what I'm doing and
Yeah.
shift it. So it's the same with the relationship. If I'm scattered and the person does anything and I'm like, oh, what's, you know, whatever that may be, it's like, wait a second, where am I?
Yeah.
Right? Where am I?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
again, that in that agency, I remember before I got married and my wife, we've shared about this before too, of we're just like, you know what? No games. Let's
Yeah.
just have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just so beautiful to feel like you could just be you
Yes.
and you learn and you grow and things come up, but there's just not this whole thing of fighting and competing, whatever it may be in any relationship, and just realizing like, hey, we're both here to be the best people we can be
Yeah.
and we can support each other and we have a daughter, whatever it may be for each person. But to realize like, hey, settle, we're souls getting
Yeah.
to experience
Yes.
all of this. And how do we really do it the best we can?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's sort of become sort of the, I don't know if you call it the thesis statement or the cornerstone of my work, but it's like, if, especially with parents, like, if the relationship, this is fleeting. Any relationship is fleeting. We know that. Like, we don't know anything about who's sticking around and how long they're going to be here for various reasons. So if you value relationships and you value time together and knowing each other when you are together, then the way you can do that with awareness, with the most awareness, is being resourced. And that requires having an understanding of what I need to be doing, and ways I want to be with myself that are fortifying, so that when I am with my people, I'm there. Because to me, that's the puzzle. It's like, what are the things I need to be aware of doing for myself? What are the ways I want to be showing up and what gets me there so that 1 out of 10 times I'm like, all right, there I was. I made that I made that conversation count, or I slowed myself down and really listened, or I was able to hear a little differently than maybe I do when I'm rushing or I'm working on my own thought instead of just being present. But like being in that more conscious way of operating, especially in our relationships, it doesn't just come in a vacuum. The conditions have to be considered
Hmm.
and the leading up to it, especially for an introvert and or somebody who gets really excited about being up here and doing my own thing. Like as much as my work is about relationships, I have to actually work extra hard to do them well because my thought brain and my visionary brain is like 10 steps ahead all the time.
I can relate. Everyone has their own playing field they can relate to. Like for some people, maybe sports. And let's say you're playing sports at a high level, maybe the very rare few people can just show up and be out,
Yeah, yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
eating, drinking,
Yeah,
whatever, and show up and play great. Maybe that's their way for whatever reason. But for most people, for them to be in their A game,
yeah,
there's a preparation. There's
yeah,
certain things they do and don't do. And I think, why is life different? Why is life not this big playing field? We're like, okay, well, what do we need to show up
totally.
as the A player I want to be?
Yeah,
What do I need? Because I have a fast nervous system and all this stuff. And so
yeah,
what I need to be able to do what I do may be very different than someone that's just totally chill and they don't, says things don't phase them.
totally.
But for each person to know even that, like what spiritual practices help me rest into my soul, what things with my body, my brain and my breathing, my eating, my sleeping, whatever do I need to do
Yeah,
so I can show up the best that I can?
yeah,
And I know some people don't have those options, but I guess always looking at whatever your situation is, how can you optimize what you can to show up to be the person that you want to be,
yeah,
which is just relaxing into your heart and soul. But if you're
yeah,
exhausted or you're doing 1,000 things and not being present, it's very hard to feel your soul that's sparking. You'll love this. There was this therapist I had in the podcast recently, and he had bad brain injuries as a police officer and then became a therapist and works with addicts. He became addicted, but he met this lady at a party and she was like in her 70s. I can't remember the exact details, but he said that she was so present. And I was very interested in what was happening with this person. And I spoke to her about it. She said that she was in an abusive marriage for like 50 years or something. And the husband recently passed away. And she made a commitment that every person she sees, she's going to spark with. She goes, so everywhere I go, I'm going to spark with every person I see. And he said, she was sparking with me. That's exactly what she was doing. And I
well,
thought that you are like a spark, that idea of like, hey, doesn't matter who it is. How can I
yeah,
be a spark
yeah,
for myself?
yeah,
And then for that person, because everyone's spark is being blinded as far as people's experience of it by something.
yeah,
And how can
yeah.
we take care of our spark so then we can be present to spark with other people and
Exactly.
support?
That's it. That's you just summed it up. It's like when no matter whether it's a stranger on the street or the person I live with, I want to add to their experience. I don't have any interest in diminishing their experience of aliveness. And so that requires me to be aware of how to keep my flame lit, let's say, or my spark sparking, because it doesn't just happen on its own. We're not perpetual motion machines. We're batteries that drain pretty quickly. And when you're giving your energy, it's like that's what I love about this awareness of humans is like the physical body is a limited system. It only has a certain amount of juice that it can use to operate. The soul is unending. And so that soul wants, it can be in a state of desiring unlimited connection and joy and awe and bliss and love. But when the body gets tired, the current can't quite get through. And so that's what I had to probably learn more than anything was well, I've got to take care of this human thing a lot more skillfully if I want this spiritual thing to be flowing at optimum capacity.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's right on it. When you said that, I was flashing to back to your 7-year-old child holding the little kid
Yeah.
because you connected to something that knew you had to be a certain way to be there for this child, and now you've learned to do that with yourself. How you've
Yeah,
learned
yeah.
to connect to yourself and hug yourself in a way of like, hey, these are the conditions I need to be able to show up as the way I want. And if I have that opportunity to do that, I'm really going to practice that.
Totally. And one last thought, because it is, I heard what you said a few minutes ago about, not everybody has access to this, or is living in a situation where they can really focus on their spiritual life. So one of the two things that I would really like in a way to keep it so essential and so simple is just one is just slowing down, like resting a little more, putting the phone down a little more and just being like, okay, wait, maybe I just need to sit here right now. Maybe I don't need to keep my nervous system hooked into something. Okay, that's one moment of a pause per day can be a game changer. And then the second one is playing this game that I often give my clients, which is like warmer, colder. Like if something feels warmer, go toward it. Trust that you have an inner compass, an inner knowing that knows your path as a soul. And my experience is that paying attention to where things feel a little cozier and a
Hmm.
little more like flowing, that is evidence of wisdom coming through. So
Hmm.
follow that and let the warmer hold you a little bit more, and ask yourself, what's warmer right now? A walk in nature or sitting on my phone? I don't know the answer, but I'm going to actually listen a little differently and let my inner compass and my alignment direct me a little bit more than just like
Hmm.
the habits or the outside world.
That's great. Those are very tangible ways. And then if someone's even like, hey, I don't know, then like, okay, well, take 2 steps to your left and see what it feels. Take 2 steps to your right,
Exactly.
see what it feels. And does one feel
Yeah.
more nurturing or more appropriate for you in the moment?
Yeah.
We've already kind of addressed all this, but if you were, which I'm sure you've done with all your reflection, if you really try to figure out what is our purpose here of life, or how do we live a good life, or how do we feel like we fulfilled our journey here and really lived well? Do
Mm,
you have a sense of what yours, or in general, or both, purpose of our human existence?
I mean, I think it's love and really doing what I said around considering my own human body and brain, and really honoring that we are these physical creatures with all of these senses and all of this vulnerability, and holding that like we're a part of everything, and that when we can remember that, even if it's just every so often, we're just going to have a different awareness of being here. And I don't know if that answers it, but that's sort of the feeling
Yeah.
of like, how do I live in this embodied state where I can enjoy all the human stuff and the development that happens and the ways that we physically get to love and care and do all the things that are so beautifully human, while really remembering that this is a fleeting experience and that we are more than this, and how lucky to like live in a time where we get to know that, and it isn't so weird, is like kind of allowing for a different quality of richness and like trust in it all. Like that's the other piece that I love about having more of a spiritual perspective on my own experience and life in general, is this sense of, oh, I can trust. Not only can I trust this, but like it's infinite intelligence at work. I would be silly not to trust it, and yet I get why we don't. But isn't that fun to think I can sort of just like kick back and enjoy this ride if I choose to, because on some level it's going to be what it is, and I get to, like, float down the river in it, or I get to hang on to the edge, white knuckle it, but either
Mhm.
way, it's gonna be happening.
Yeah, going back to what you said earlier too about the resting and that it's not a building.
Yeah.
I think that that's to me one thing of we have this beautiful, shining, sparking soul that it just is.
Yeah.
And so how do we rest into that as like our spine? And then how do we fully embrace the humanity of this miracle of we're here? And so
Yeah.
I think it's easy to, or can be easy to cut off from humanity and be a witness spiritual perspective, or it can be easy to be consumed by the human struggle on the inside and the outside. And I think the miracle, the magic happens when we remember who we are. And then as we are, we get to fully go into the human experience and embrace all the colors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. That's so beautifully said. And I think about you and your work all the time because I just think that you're giving all the people, but especially the young people, really, really incredible tools and skills and practices that help them stay connected to that, whether that's the language that they or their family use. Either way, it's getting in there on some beautiful level that is just really, it's so cool. It's just so cool.
Yeah, it's very beautiful because the way I see it is we're helping people that are still connected to their spark learn to stay there, navigate the world, and people that have lost connection, helping them rekindle it
Yeah.
so then they can navigate the world and have that spark. It's beautiful to see it in all different ways. Like one of the guys we work with, he came up to me the other day and he was at the coffee shop. And this guy said to me, one of my best friends used to train with you guys. And his path, this guy, he's a jet fighter pilot.
Wow.
And he said, the guy that works with us goes, "Hey, will you ask him a favor next time you talk to ask him a question for me?" He goes, "Do you know if he still uses his ninja breathing?" He goes, "Oh, I don't have to ask him. He told me he does all the time when he's up there." And
Mm,
so, the guy at work was just so blown
mm,
away that here's this guy and that's his path as a jet, fighter pilot using the tools he did on the mats. And then you have all these executives or wherever kids in school or whatever it may be. And it's just simple human
yeah.
tools in our toolkit, which as we use the 3 Bs, the body,
Yeah.
breathing, and brain.
Yeah.
And within all of them, there's such refinement to know what do you need in your body right now to rest, your breathing, your brain, right? And so I love the simplicity of it. And this whole Spiritual Ninja podcast to me was based on that of how do we spiritually ninja our inside so we can
Yeah.
have that reference point of who we are. And then the world is wild. How do we spiritually ninja the
Totally.
world so we can navigate? So I love.
Totally. That's so it. Exactly. And we are so much more, we have more agency than we maybe were led to believe when we arrived and were educated in this. So, as you also operate from, I have this idea that we arrive and we are in there and we're here to have the experiences that we have. And as we start walking, we have a family that has their own systems of doing things and their own limited beliefs. And then we have a school that gives us that. And then we have, there's all these things that sort of pile on. And some of them are supportive and some of them aren't. But the real, like, spiritual opportunity is the unearthing and the remembering that, like, oh, I don't have to take that on. Oh, that wasn't mine. Oh, actually, I can do it this way. When I pay attention to this thing, I have a different experience. Like, I think that's the fun of it. I'm sure there's going to be a time in our evolution where we're not going to have to pile on the stuff.
Hmm.
But I also think in this phase of evolution, that's what is fun. Like,
Hmm.
I am so glad for my journey, and I went through a lot of things that were challenging and hard and confusing at times, but, like, wow, look at how that led me to being the
Hmm.
me I am now. And so that's what I tell parents a lot. It's like, whether you're giving them the just right experience of life or you're the trampoline that they're bouncing off of, you can't mess this up. I
Yeah.
mean, I know that that's a funny way to say it, but, like, the
No, it's
point of
true
it
though.
is like, we really are gonna get the experiences that we're here to
Hmm.
have, and I think that a life of ease can be wonderful in some ways, but I also know that a life with some challenges and some, like, we're gonna grow no matter what, and that's
Yeah.
a cool way to sort of approach it all. And on that note, what fun it is to have toolkits and the things that you and I both practice and teach to be in it with a little more awareness and a little more full on like, okay, I'm going to surf this experience. I'm going to
Mhm,
flow with it. I'm going to let go of the branches on the side of the bank
mhm.
and like be in the current and trust that there's something that I know I can really rely on that's helping me through.
Yeah, when you were speaking, I was picturing all these clothes that don't fit or they're dirty. They have like a
Yeah,
nail in
yeah.
them, they're sticking into us and all these things. And they hurt. And sometimes taking them off hurts. And then all of a sudden you get to the place where you're like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm naked. I took a shower
Yeah.
and I feel so clean. And there's no clothes on me that don't fit anymore. It's just the soul shining. And
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing 'cause there is a struggle, but in the end, you realize the struggle was the holding on, not the letting go.
Yes. Woo! Exactly.
And then
That's
you're like,
it.
wow, man, you're just a
Exactly.
clean baby again.
Totally. And how fun. It's springtime in Maine, so everything's just starting to pop and there's flowers and trees and then I have a 20 plus year career of watching humans grow. And what I realize brings me the most awe is just watching life evolve, watching nature do its thing, watching humans do their thing. Like I love it. I love,
Mm,
love, love. I love experiencing it myself. I love watching it in others. It's like pay attention to those things that really light you up because that's where it's at.
Yeah, and it is really cool with your career because when I met you, I don't even remember when it was 20 years ago or no, maybe not that long. I'm not
No,
sure.
like at least 16.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So at the time, we both were actively growing our businesses, and there was a lot of that. And then at some point, you and I would interact through the years, and at some point, you were like, "Hey, you know what? I'd rather do less and go deeper." And so then you made this shift where some people could be like, "Oh, well, shouldn't you try to do more people and all this, right?" And
Yeah.
then you're like, "No, no, no. This is the path that feels like I'm going to do the best work for me and for my people."
Yeah. Yeah,
And so I
exactly.
think really for all of us to realize, don't have to get caught up in the system of you should do this or should do that. If there is a should, we should relax into our soul
Yeah.
and find our path.
Yeah.
But it's not a path of expectations from anyone other than what
No.
it should be. And I
No.
think, yeah.
And that's trial and error. Like, I was on a track of like build and grow and get the word out and do all the different things. And it's seductive. There's an ego stroking that comes from that. And there's a external awareness of like success. But like I had to just like stop the whole train, get out and look around for a while and really recognize that like, sure, that's a way to go, but what do I value and what has meaning to me and my soul? And it was more time in nature, less time on the computer, more time with people that I could be in person with. And it took going in the direction that didn't fit to
Mhm.
really recognizing what is the life I want to be living. And that took a lot of writing and clarity. And I would say the thing that got me the most clear of all was committing to an appreciation practice because sure, that's just a good thing to do in general because it kind of leaves you like tuned up a little bit for the day. But what it did for me of doing it day upon day upon day, month after month was really show me what I cared about. And it was like a very few things. And once I saw it, I couldn't do it differently because it didn't fit anymore. It was like I saw the things that gave me the juice and gave me the
Mhm.
meaning. And once I understood that, I had to go in that direction.
That's great. Yeah, and Sistema, which is one of the main martial arts we teach, they sometimes call it know thyself. And I think to really know other people, we have to know ourselves and then to be able to live that, support other people, knowing ourselves. Know we have this mutual love and respect and appreciation. And I know that even though we haven't connected for ages, I know that you're sparking and doing your thing. And, I'm sparking and doing my
Yep.
thing. And that we have something that just from the get go is there as this connection. And I think the more we feed that in ourselves and all of our relationships, the more joy we'll experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, this felt like a really beautiful, like, stop the train and step off and connect with a co-traveler and be like, "How you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, what do we know now? Like, where are we?" And,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what a gift, so thank you.
No, definitely. Thank you. Yeah. This thing, I always say, just kind of happened. And the conversations to me like this are, for me, fill my soul so much. And I really cherish these conversations, these times. And to get to do it with you is really delicious. So thank you.
Same, equal. When you reached out, I was like, "Yes, 100% right now, anytime, let's go." Because I know it's always gonna be meaningful, and that's what I love, so thank you.
Thank you. And I know, and you know, we're always here for each other. So
I do.
I love you a
And to
lot and
the
appreciate all you do.
listeners, thank you. Reach out, I'm around.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put all your contacts and
Great.
everything in all the
Perfect.
notes. But yeah, definitely, if anyone's seeking what Carrie does, you would be very happy to work with her.
Thank
So,
you.
of course, no, it's you bring a lot of joy and clarity and acceptance and love to the families that work with you, whatever that capacity that is. And I think people need that sounding love board because it's very easy to get caught in the grind of into it or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, that's really well said. I don't typically think of it like that, but yes, I am a, spacious observer, and sometimes that kind of reflection with perspective and with a little awareness of the development can really lighten and slow everybody down, and that's a beautiful thing in family life.
Yeah, and also just your energy brings a lightness too, because people can learn concepts, but then
Yeah.
when the concepts are delivered with joy and a sparkiness to it, it helps bring lightness to the situation, not just conceptually, but I'm like, oh, wait a second. It's like you go to a doctor and they're like, "Oh, that's not a
Yeah.
big deal. Don't worry about
Yeah,
that." You're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
right?"
Yeah,
So it's kind of like
totally.
that, like, "Hey, you're good. This
Yeah.
is all fine,"
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's
Yes,
great.
beautiful. Okay, well, good. I'm glad that's what I bring, because I that's the intention for sure.
Thank you for being part of this Spiritual Ninja podcast. I really appreciate you being here. My goal with the podcast is to share heart to heart, soul to soul conversations. So if you would be so kind to share and to follow, that helps me get the word out about the podcast. Okay. Thank you and hope to see you on another podcast soon.